So welcome to our first marathon talk. So we normally do this, we normally have one of these talks towards the end of marathon training, which we'll still try and do because I think it's a great way of getting rid of any of those last minute nerves that people have. But we had a chat and we were saying wouldn't it be great to actually have one at the start of marathon training, because probably lots of people that, especially that are new to marathoning, might have lots of questions. The plans can be quite intimidating when you first have a look at them. So we've got a Facebook page for CR Spring Marathons, and in there we've got some marathon training plans that Gavin from the coaching teams put together. There are other training plans available as well, so we'll share some of the links to other ones. There's some beginner plans that some people have used and find quite useful. But I think you can look at that documentation and almost get a bit overwhelmed by it. So the idea of tonight is it's not necessarily a formal coaching meet, but it's more about hearing some thoughts from experienced marathon runners, really. So answering any questions that people might have. I mean, how many people have we got here that are new to marathoning this year? Welcome. Yeah, definitely. So I suppose the first question is just making sure that you really want to do it. And I think there's nothing wrong with also sort of saying, actually, I'm not ready for this. But I think you've got to be honest with yourself that you're prepared to commit to the training, because it's a big feat to run a marathon. I think because everybody does it, quite often we all go, oh, I've got to do one. But it's a big thing running a marathon, and I think as a running club sometimes it's not gets respected as much as it should be, because lots of people do it and it seems a thing to do, but it's an epic feat. So be honest with yourself that you do really want to do it, and also be prepared that it might not go to exactly how you planned. So it's sort of how you can cope with that as well that is really important. And the biggest thing I think is to not compare yourself to other people as well. So we get caught up in this training plan. People are doing different things, and you've got to listen to yourself the whole way through. So just a quick little bit about the plan. So the plan that we've got available is split into 3 cycles. So the first cycle is all about building up your distance. Don't worry too much about speed. Build up the mileage, get the endurance base there, and then the second mesocycle is about building up the speed. So there will be track sessions and things, but it's not the important thing. And then the third mesocycle is about combining the two and getting ready for race day. And within those mesocycles there are times for rest and recovery, so make sure you do listen to that as well. I think I've talked enough, so how do you want to do it? Introduce the panel, or just have questions?
Yeah, we did post a little bio about everybody, so hopefully if you've seen on the page, we've been posting about who we all are and what all of our experiences are. So for those who don't already know me, I'm Vicky. I've done 6 marathons so far. I'm now training for London. I got a place in the ballot for London and for Berlin, so next year I'm doing both of those majors. So so I'm training for that. I've had some good marathons, never quite had the one, which is why I keep signing up for them. I'm after a sub 4, so that's why my focus at the minute is training for that, but I've also had the bad ones. Paris was a particularly bad one for me, so I know what works, I think, now, what I need to do to sort of train properly for the next one. I'll hand over.
I'm Pete. I've done a few marathons, which I can't believe, to be honest. And I think Vicky's actually asked me to come down to probably say what not to do. After this experience in Venice. I could certainly give some advice on what not to do. But for me, it's all about setting your own expectations and your own goals. What is it that you want to get out of this? Is it just purely to finish a marathon? Do you want a specific time? And the thing I found, particularly on my second marathon, was I think I set myself about 7 different targets, all sort of time targets, just so when you do get to the end, if you've not hit your target, you don't have that huge disappointment, even though you've just achieved something amazing. And actually, out of those 7 targets, I achieved 6, very close to the 7th. And I thought, well, that's amazing, you know, and it just felt so good. So yeah, it's all about setting realistic expectations for yourself. It's really hot.
Yeah, not in a bit, yeah.
Chris Rayner, been at the club probably for about six years. And for about the first 2 of those, wouldn't race, just said I liked running for fitness and for fun, which are incidentally 2 of the best reasons to do it. But then I started doing races, gave in. I think the reason I didn't want to do them was I knew I'd get quite competitive, which I did. Was then quoted as saying I'd never run a marathon, and after running my first one in just under 3 hours in 2015, I've done 2 every year since. And I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm the classic didn't want to do, no way am I doing a marathon, and now I'm sort of pretty much addicted to it. And I'm lucky that most of mine have gone quite well. And there are things that have gone wrong, we'll come to that, but you know, I'll be one of the fortunate ones who hasn't had an absolute stinker yet. So yeah, and hopefully I won't at the next one either.
I'm Steph. I've been running for about 4 years, and a bit like Chris, didn't ever envisage running a marathon. So I went through the milestones of your 5k, 10k half, and enjoyed the halves a few times. And then decided that I just wanted to run a marathon and give it a go, not with any clear expectations, but I did have a time that I would really like, and I was sort of about half an hour over that time. And when I finished the marathon, incidentally, it was the first time I'd actually run half a marathon without stopping. So the first 13 miles were really good. And then the second half of the race just sort of slowly went downhill. Not drastic, but not really what I expected. So when I finished the marathon, I thought, right, okay, I feel like I know what to do then. And then went on to run an ultra marathon in July last year, so trained all the way through the summer, completed an ultra, which I absolutely loved. Yeah, and I'm back for another go at the marathon. There goes.
I'm Danny. I've done 6 marathons. I started running about 5.5 years ago. I was training this year for Boston in April. I was lucky enough to get a good first place. The marathon is probably my favourite distance for running, probably because I enjoy the discipline and the structure of it. I also love the Sunday long runs. I like getting a little group of people that I'm with and just bonding with them and seeing them through the 4-month training, whether I'm leading them, plotting the routes, or being part of the group that's being led. I find that for that period from December right through to April, I get less stressed and less injured, funny enough, than any other time of the year. Once I get to April, the marathon's done. I'm like a kid in a sweet shop, I'm booking all manner of races, the wrong races, the wrong combination, and everything goes to pot, and that's when I get injured. So I'm usually get a bit giddy about this time of year when I know I've got me 4 months of marathon training. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and any help or advice I can give you guys, fine. It's great.
I'm Leona. I probably did things the wrong way around, really. Most people start running and then decide to do a marathon, whereas I pretty much started running because I wanted to run a marathon. Had a few disadvantages to that because my body probably wasn't ready for it, and I probably got more injuries and struggled a bit more with the training than I would have done if I'd have had a bit more experience under my belt. That said, probably wouldn't change it. I've pretty much not stopped marathon training since I started. I'm on number 8. No, I've done 8, and I'm training for the 9th, which is Tokyo in March. Learned a lot of things along the way, but the one thing I would say is probably like be in control of your own training. So don't get swept up with things and do things just because other people are doing it. And whilst you'll hear lots of ideas tonight, don't just think, oh, you know, Danny said do yoga, so I'll go and do yoga. Have a good think about whether it fits into your training and whether it's right for you before deciding to do it, because everyone's different and there's no one size fits all. And even as you change as a runner, the training you do will change. So that's kind of what I would say.
Cool. I realised I should have introduced myself. Really, so
Yeah.
I'm Sarah and I'm one of the coaches. So I've only actually ran 2 marathons and one of them wasn't even official. So I've only ran 1 official marathon and that went horribly wrong. It's not my favourite distance. But what I have done is experienced a lot of other people running marathons. And so we, as part of the marathon training sessions, we do run our track sessions on a Friday and hill sessions on a Wednesday, and all of those that can contribute to your marathon training. So shall we open up to the floor? We've got a question for our panel? Specific members or just
I
open
hope you've got some
questions?
questions, otherwise this is going to be really short. Don't be shy, like anything, there is no silly questions, like whatever's running through your head.
Can I ask you a question? Are you all in the spring marathon training groups?
No.
In the Facebook group?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. It's the best place to sort of organise anything, isn't it?
Yeah, so just search for, so what is it, Chorlton Runners Spring Marathon or CR Spring Marathon?
I guess question about it then. So I talked about Gavin putting a plan together. I think technically for the Manchester Marathon, time-wise it started this last week. So when you further with getting that out to people and start to follow it, or just
Yeah, well, I'd use the files that are on the system because it won't change that much. So you can certainly use it from Metacycle 1, Mesocycle 1. Yeah, so they're in the file section. If anyone's struggling with finding them, then let us know and we can try and post it more clearly, but they are in the file section of the...
Is everybody a member of the spring marathon?
That's what it is.
Yeah, you're all on that page, so if we just repost the link.
Yeah, post the link.
Are we going to start doing the Sunday runs this week?
Yeah, I'll be posting a route, and it's a 10-mile route. I think it's 2 easy, 6 marathon, and 2 easy. And I usually keep it off the water parks and keep it on tarmac, keep it on the road. And I'll usually be running something about 8-minute pace. I usually plot a route that's quite easy to follow, a few turns and a few key points for turning left, turning right. People regroup and usually keep together. If people want to go on ahead, that's fine. I usually find that very quickly you'll get people of different paces, different turning up on a regular basis, and people networking, and you might use that run and turn up on a Saturday and do it.
The other good thing about the group is you can post in there to say, I'm planning on doing my long run Sunday, this is the pace I'm looking to run, does anybody want to run with me? Because certainly for mine, not last year as much because now I live with Alice, so I've always got a training buddy, but before that I would post in there and did little groups that would form up, and that was kind of before the coaches sort of brought it in and put it on the Sunday run. But we always used to meet outside here actually, because we'd often stay on the roads and go to the routes from here. But yeah, if you're looking to run your long run and if it's been posted and the CI page it doesn't look like your pace is there, or you want to do a different day, definitely post them there because there's usually people that will group together. But yeah, as Danny said, you naturally sort of once you've started training, start to find the people that are on your pace and you start to group together, and then you're with them then for the whole training, which is what's quite nice about it. I made quite a lot of good friends doing marathon training.
I mean, I think Gavin is working on this year's plan, but as Sarah's already said, and I was just having a chat with someone else about it earlier, if last year's plan was a good plan, there's no reason why this year it's a bad plan. So if the current files out there, just start working with and establish. I think there's 2017, 2018 files are still there.
Yeah.
Just pick one. The important thing at this stage is just really to start the process, get yourself into the habit of going out and following. If I don't really follow a plan myself, but when I first did my first marathon, I followed the plan that was put out by the group almost to the letter, and I felt that in the first year that really helped because it gave me the discipline And because I didn't really know what I was doing in order to sort of train for a marathon, having never done one, a plan seemed better than no plan. Now I'm 5 marathons in and a bit more experience, I have a rough idea of what I feel I need to do in a week to get me fit for a race. And it'll incorporate being built around the things that I'll want to do, like if I want to go and do reps or go to track on Friday or turn club on Tuesday, and then you'll build the other things in around it. But the key thing at the moment, I would say to all of you, is that you need to start committing and just getting out and doing the miles at whatever pace, but just get into the habit of. I did it today for social reasons. I wasn't in any shape to run at the weekends, and I unfortunately got this week off. So I went out today, knowing I haven't run at the weekend. So I went out and did 15 miles today. I didn't want to leave the house, but part of me knew that the discipline of the marathon is that you go and do it even when you don't want to. You know, and
well,
but most of the time.
As long as you don't want to, it's not that you're injured.
Yeah, no, that's slightly different. But there will be times during the marathon program where you don't feel like going for a run, and on odd occasions maybe don't. You know, but it's a bad habit to get into if you want to make it, if you want to prepare yourself.
Which is why it's great to get buddy.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to say. I've been very fortunate when I've done them that I've always had really good people to train with. Steve Welch, who's over there, first year, and Neil, they were absolutely brilliant. And we'd go out in our little group of 2 and 3. You know, Danny leads a brilliant group on Sundays where he's like, you know, mother hen almost, taking out like about 20 runners. I've seen them when we've been running in the opposite direction and passing their group. He's fantastic. But within that page, there will be somebody else who's at a similar level to you, who's maybe, you know, an ideal running buddy. I mean, this year the last couple of years I've had Andy Haney, and it really does help. So either latch into a big group or just find one other person who's on the same page as you, who's dead reliable. And if you can't be asked to get out of bed on Sunday morning, they'll be knocking at your door, and vice versa.
Can I ask a question, please? I've looked at some of the training plans. They frighten me to death, to be honest. Some of them look like knitting plans to me. They look like knitting patterns because it's knit 200, purl 200, and I think, do I actually have to do all that? My goal is to get round in 1 pace. I'm 52 now, so realistically anything under 5 hours, anything under 5 hours and a half would be a bonus to me.
Brilliant.
So how, do I need to be thinking about doing lactate threshold runs or interval training or anything like that, or do I just need to?
To summarise, the question is, do I need to follow the plan to the dot? And do I need to be doing all the different types of runnings that are in the plan?
Right, okay, well, first of all, the ages, I'm 57, the age is a problem. I do chop and change the plan. The first year, like Chris, I wasn't meticulous in following the plan. And to be honest, I struggle with it. The one run that I don't want Renee on to change is the long run.
Yeah.
That's the one that will give you the confidence on the day. And to be honest, that's the one on the Sunday mornings you'll get more support from than anybody. Regarding what you're saying about the speed work, yeah, it does seem a bit intimidating. Now, what's important is it doesn't really come across in the plan, is you do complement your running with other stuff. And someone mentioned Pilates before, you only get kettlebells, core strength. So you can kind of drop a run and replace it, something like that. I found I benefited by doing that. Speed work that we're talking about, there are other ways you can do speed works rather than the reps you're talking about. Tuesday night, just up in your group, park run, GR. That's.
I think one of the important things is it's important, especially the first session, the first few months, first few weeks, are about building the mileage up, building the endurance up. So that's the thing to focus on. Don't do too much too soon, because that's the recipe for injury.
Yeah.
the plans that are on there at the moment are more sort of improvers and advanced as well. So if you are more of a beginner, it's probably worth speaking to the likes of Jane Davis at the club, because she's got a brilliant group going at the minute, and she is doing some track sessions on a Friday. So there's some speed work there and we'll be feeding into that marathon plan. She can probably give you a bit of advice. Steph's probably another one that can give you a bit of advice.
And it is about not doing too much too soon, but understanding that what you're doing to start off with is okay, and not jumping on everybody else's right. Well, I've got to make sure that I do. I was absolutely completely overwhelmed with it when I first did my marathon training, thinking I needed to do this, needed to do that. I ended up burning out at the end of it because.
I think once you get into it, there's nothing to get into scale.
No, nothing at all.
You just take one step at a time. And I know Sarah's mentioned about obviously getting the miles in, up in the miles. But yeah, just making sure you don't do that too fast. Don't just suddenly jump from 10 miles to 15 mile runs. You know, just do it gradually.
The experience is amazing. You know, what you see yourself achieving. And I'm 53, so I can do.
Is everyone up to 10 miles here? Yeah.
No.
No, right. So that's something to think about.
I did the half marathon in October.
Okay.
Quid then.
Yeah, when I did my first marathon, I was going to be part of the club, and I think if I'd have seen the plans, I'd been pretty scared at that point, to be honest. But I think bear in mind that this is a running club, and everyone here is like following sort of some sort of plan. But there's lots of people that do a marathon that aren't part of a running club, and probably don't follow a plan, and probably don't run regularly, and they all get around. So just take a deep breath, and I'm sure.
Well, my mantra is you can always walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
That is right. Sorry, the key, this early stage, the key session is your Sunday. Try and, don't burn yourself out on Friday night when, smashing track or something if you feel that you're going to be suffering with sore legs and, fatigued for Sunday, because the Sunday runs are the ones that they are absolute ones that I would say you've got to try and put in the bank.
What I've done for that, I've swapped the track because I'm worried about burning out for the Sunday, is doing interval session on the treadmill. Not always, but I will add a track session maybe once a month just to see how I am. But yeah, doing intervals on the treadmill.
Another great speed thing is hills as well. So it doesn't all have to be sort of like track speed. Hills is a great way of building your strength and your speed, and it's a nicer, safer way of. Sorry.
And your quads.
And your quads, yeah. Yeah, it tends to be a safer way of sort of doing speed work as well, because you tend to concentrate on your form a little bit more and maybe be a bit more hesitant than if you were sort of going all out on the track. So, and we have a hill session on Wednesday.
Is the hill session on a Wednesday, or is that just in the summer?
No, the hill session, so yes, is our hill session on Wednesday. We have a hill session that Val does that over the winter meets at South Spice on Muldiff Road, and they do reps over the road hill, essentially. Yeah. There are also sort of informal groups, so there is a group that meets on a Wednesday morning for those that maybe have a bit of leisure time, meets at 9 on the bridge, and does the Kenworthy Woods Hill. And then, there's also lots of, pick a hilly park run or Black Sheep. Quite often go out to the hills or the fells, so you can join in with some of that to get some hills in your life.
If you're not a fan of hills, then the Muldiff one is a nice one to start because it's nice and steady. The summer ones, I always struggle with the one in Kenworthy Woods, but I'm not really a hill one.
Don't invite you out and stop put.
Yeah, I think it is important to try and fit in a session like hills or track. I find that plan really intimidating when I look at it, and by the time I got to see that plan, I think I was on my 4th marathon, I was like, this would break me if I stuck to all of it. So I tend to pick and choose what I know will work for me, and I think that plan sort of starts off with the base of you're already running 30 miles a week. So if you're not there and you then jump into that plan, it's not going to end very well for you because you're upping it too quickly there. So that's why you've got to be quite careful and make sure you adapt the plan to suit you. But I think it's really important. When I first started out, I did no speed work at all. I ran one pace and that was it. So all of my runs were the same. And I've seen such a huge difference in my running by adding in those key sessions. So, you know, if it's a bit intimidating to have the two, just pick one, like do hills on Wednesday or track on Friday, because then that will give you the benefit. It will benefit you running come marathon day, just to have that.
The great thing about those sessions as well is not only are they helping from a speed perspective, but they're also helping in terms of your form and your sort of running style, so they can help you in other ways and get you. Chris posted a great thing there recently about form and how it can get you free miles in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, it takes practice, but if you think how many steps you take in a marathon, if you can just make each one of those steps slightly more efficient, even if it's just like half a centimetre per stride, slightly longer, that's going to deliver you, a quicker time. It's going to preserve energy. So there's lots of things that you can do by, we're lucky at the club now that we're developing, got these activities on Friday night at track, and where there's people there that help encourage you and help coach you. There's plenty of people around the club that you could always ask for advice. And yeah, I suppose it's common sense, but if you can run in a more efficient manner, that's going to be a benefit over 26 miles. So maybe just start thinking about what it is you can do to try and improve your style a little bit.
Would people recommend using YouTube videos for technique? Because personally, when I've seen them before, they've always worked really well for me.
For drills and things like that?
Yeah, just technique as well. Because particularly in my second marathon, I used to watch a few YouTube things for technique, and when I was doing my easy runs, like the slow runs, I just used it as a way of practicing that bit of technique. I focused on one little bit, so your cadence, your stride, or your breathing, or your arms. Just focus on one thing at a time, and you slowly build up, a pretty good form.
Yeah, and the easier shorter runs are probably the better time to do that, because to try and maintain that level of focus, to try and fix or correct something in your run, it's very hard to do that and maintain that for 10 miles. So maybe just try it in bursts of a 1k at a time, or if you're on K on your watch or 1 mile on your watch, just maybe say this mile I'm going to just try and focus on one point of improvement, because it is hard to sustain it, because you've got to keep sort of refocusing your mind to concentrate on it. So, and on a long run, when you get tired and fatigued, it's pretty demanding to try. So try and do as Pete says, in shorter sections, when you've got a little bit more mental and physical capacity to maybe work on that. And then hopefully over time, each of these little improvements that you'll make, hopefully over the 3 months, will contribute to something that becomes sort of like your new default setting. But it's like everything, practice makes perfect. Or not quite perfect, nobody's perfect.
And if you and Sean, Nick will offer sessions.
Yeah.
How many of you worked on your nutrition during your training, and do you think it had an impact?
So how many people worked on their nutrition, and did it have an impact?
I've run the Manchester Marathon 4 times. The first 3 times, first 3 races, there was 3 minutes difference in each marathon. Okay, so Manchester 2018 was my 4th marathon. I put myself under pressure to get a good for age qualifying time for Boston, so I had to PB by a minimum of 6 minutes. So having looked at the training I'd done for the first 3 marathons, I could see it was identical, running with the same people, same pace, same nights out, same days out. I had to change something. So I looked at nutrition, I looked at core strength and speed work. Speed work was an easy one. Tuesday night became a speed run. I just stepped up a group. Core strength, Monday night, it's a rest day, but you can still do core, whether that's kettlebells, Pilates, yoga. And the nutrition, MyFitnessPal, and for the first 3 weeks logged everything I ate and drank, and that broke it down into 3 categories: your fats, your carbs and protein. So from that I could evaluate what I had to increase, decrease. And I did that for 3 weeks, and after that, once I got an idea of what meals to have and not to have, I've been that, I didn't use it up, I just had a good feel for what I should be having. And from that, I PB'd about 12 minutes. So I look back on the first 3 marathons I did now, whereas I used to look back and think, great times, I always think, could have done better had I looked at those 3 days. And again, the 3 things I'm talking about there, you're not really increasing your mileage, you're not putting pressure on your legs. But I had a chat with a friend of mine after I PB'd, and he described those 3 things as being marginal gains. They're not marginal gains. Marginal gains are when you go for your long run in your race day undies or your race day socks. the building blocks are really important, and if you ignore the 3 of them, you're missing out on a possible PB. You really are.
On nutrition, I mean, the long runs also give you a great way of starting to practice sort of what you're going to fuel on the day as well. So, I mean, I often think when we have the talk 2 weeks before, it's a little bit too late to start talking about things like that. So start understanding how you feel on a run, what you want to eat on a run as well, because we're all different. I think some people have like 6 gels or 12 gels. I can't. I mean, the hardest stomach one. So you know, it might be an energy drink, or I'm sure we'll have jam sandwiches at some point. So I mean, it might be an interesting thing to talk about.
Well, there is actually a talk coming on nutrition, but it won't be until February, but we will do a talk on nutrition then. So hopefully that will help, and that's still a good month out from the marathon. But I mean, I've never looked at that kind of thing, apart from carb loading, because you know you have to do it, so I've kind of looked into that before, but I never really paid much attention. But that is something that I've changed for this marathon, because again, it's getting harder and harder for me now to get those PBs. So I know I've got the running down, I'm fine with that, I know what I need to do there, but for me to improve this time round, I'm looking at other factors, and nutrition's one of them. I'm another advocate for MyFitnessPal, because I started to use that recently, just to sort of see what I am taking in, and you know what I need to do more. And it's quite interesting when you use it, because it links to your watch, so it'll update, give you all these extra calories after you've done your runs, which is wonderful, but then also makes you realise just then how much more you need to take in. That's really important. I was speaking to Amy Sprague, if anybody knows, she's done quite a few marathons, she will tell you that if you speak to her, bless her, but she's said that one thing for her was using MyFitnessPal, because it helped her make sure she was getting enough, because she wasn't eating enough when she did it, and she said that was really important, because it was obviously affecting her running, not taking on enough food, not replenishing after long runs and that type of thing, because not everybody wants to eat straight after a run, so sometimes you don't get enough in. So there is going to be a talk in February, but definitely something to look at. And again, the groups are another really great place to get this kind of information. I'm pretty sure if you typed into the search bar of that group, this question would have already been asked. I'm sure there's loads of information when we've discussed it in the past, and I'm sure I can remember something. I think Jane might have even put something up about nutrition. I think there's some notes in there from one of the talks last year, so it's worth having a look in the files again, because I'm pretty sure there's something already on that topic. But yeah, I think it's really important to look at all these other factors as well as you do.
I mean, there's different parts of the nutrition. There's obviously feeding for the run. Obviously that, I mean, I'm no expert on any of this, but getting the right carbs for your runs, making sure you've got enough energy to do everything that's in the plan. Without going over the top, because you need to prepare yourself for the big day when you don't want to be eating too much before the race on the big day, where you might have taken in loads on your training runs. So you want to train your body so that it's used to having the right level of sort of energy before your runs, and that's mainly carbs. And then after, they always say you've got to have protein pretty much straight away, to try and repair your muscles, get yourself ready and everything. But also something else that everyone says is, once you really get into the training, everyone's appetite grows massively, doesn't it? You just eat and eat and eat. There's loads of people who've actually put loads of weight on.
I usually put weight on during marathon training, which again is a reason why I'm looking at it more balanced, because it's so easy afterwards to be like, oh, right, I've run a long run, I'm going to have cake, and that's not the right kind of thing then. And that's fine, sometimes you definitely need it, but I always put weight on in marathon training, but I think again that's because I'm not balancing and getting the right types of food. And it's interesting when you look at my FitPal, because it does break it down with the carbs, protein, fat, and I can see that I am just not having enough protein, and obviously that's really important. So it's just about being a bit more balanced with what I'm eating. But apparently Tony Everett was saying that there's new science out about the rule about having protein 30 minutes after a workout. Well, that's not true anymore. Who knows? But he said there's been some further research in it, and not necessarily that you need to eat something immediately afterwards.
And I think he said you could have ice cream.
He did say you could have ice cream. He said you could have what was it, an ice cream sandwich he had?
Ben and Jerry's with 2 cookies each side.
Some interesting points made by a few people there. I think what I would say about nutrition is that I probably didn't really pay any attention to nutrition for the first marathon. I just knew I needed to probably eat a bit more because I was doing more exercise, but I just carried on eating relatively. I think I lived on chicken kebabs really from Abdul's in Fallowfield, if you know, which I still swear is absolutely fantastic, fantastic balanced meals. You know, protein, carbs, quite low fat. You know, it's a bit of salad. I mean, there's not this like, you know, pretty good. But I think it's something that I have thought about a little bit more as I've got more into doing more marathons. Vicky's right. It's not a free pass to eat whatever you want. It's even in a marathon you burn surprisingly. It's a disappointing number of calories. Really. It's I think for me, based on my size, it's around about just over 3,000 calories. So it's quite a lot. But say on like a 20-mile long run, it's you know 2,000. So or maybe just under 2,000. So it's not always quite as many as you think, but it is absolutely crucial that you, especially the day. Well, I'd say before any session, that you don't hit those sessions short of energy. You know, you should make sure you're fueled up for them. I always think sort of like if you're going to be doing an evening session, just a meal of like rice and depends if you're vegetarian or not, but rice and chicken or something like that is really good. A little bit of pasta perhaps.
Not forgetting hydration.
Yeah.
It's mostly important.
Again, hydration.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there was a point made as well about eating too much the day before a marathon. We've got a long way before we get to that stage, but one of the mistakes I have made, I think in Boston I probably ate the day before, so I actually hit the start line feeling a bit bloated. I know in London I ate too late, so my food hadn't digested in time, which resulted in me making a toilet stop at mile 16, which cost me exactly a minute on my watch. I know I was a minute slow on that mile, but did something else very quickly. So it is a factor. I still think after exercise, try and get something like a peanut butter sandwich or a chicken sandwich.
Chocolate milk.
Yeah, it's still a good thing to do. I'd try and avoid eating too much in the 2 or 3 hours preceding any run that you're going to do, because for me, I think you just increase the chances of getting stitch. So I'd like for your long runs on Saturday, I'd eat well at around about 7 or 8 o'clock, get a good night's sleep, and then just maybe have something like toast and jam, a couple of slices of toast and jam, or a lot of people swear by bagels, don't they, with jam or something on the morning, so that you're not going out too bloated.
But again, everyone's very different.
Yeah. And that's what the great. You can actually start practicing in a week as well. You know, you've got all this time. You'll work out what works for you and what energy.
Exactly.
Learn how your body reacts to when you eat too
and
close
those
to
of you
it
that
or not.
those of you that are running 4 or 5 hour marathons will need to fuel differently to those that are running sub-3.
So it's a long time on your feet. So, but I think the key thing is make sure that you don't go out on any session short of energy and food, and you fuel properly for it.
Can I ask about footwear and I guess attire in general? So I've probably bought about 16 pairs of Elastics off Gaz over the last few weeks or so. No idea what the difference is between them really in that respect. So what sort of tips you've got on the right sort of gear to wear?
That's very individual.
What tips have you got on the right wear of footwear? Right footwear.
Me and Chris are quite similar in this respect, in that we do like lightweight, you know, we do no support or anything like that. We're quite lucky, and I think our running form you know, can get away with just lightweight runners.
Yeah.
You know, we use Boston's quite a lot, but also you know, like the Adios Boost and what have you. Whereas a lot of people, when they go to half marathon and beyond, you know, they do need that support. So it's very much an individual kind of thing.
For my first training block that I did, I actually did most of my miles in quite a heavy supported shoe, and it was only the last couple of long runs that I actually then switched to a pair of lighter weight Boston boots, Adidas Boston boots, which are, they've still got a mix of a bit, you know, a bit of cushioning, but they're generally regarded as quite a lightweight shoe. But I was very careful, or I was advised not to run in a lightweight shoe to begin with. And although now the Boston is probably my default shoe, I now race in an even lighter one than that but only for the marathon itself, just for race day. I still think there's something to be said for people who haven't got a lot of experience of running and they don't know how their body's going to respond to it, to running in something that's maybe got a little bit more support. Because the one thing you don't want to end up is with like you know, a foot injury. Because there's a lot of, you know, you think how many times your foot's striking that ground, any extra support under your foot is going to, you know, help cushion that a little bit. It's also cushioning the ankle and then in turn the knee. So
it probably makes sense to get a gait analysis if you're really unsure. So there are people that will do it. I know our friends that run Northwest will sort you out. But you know, it's fine buying cheap shoes off Gaz, but you need to, and I should be supporting that, but you need to work out what's right for you. Which I mean, that's the most important part, really.
I was surprised you said that you trained in a different shoes to the ones you actually ran in, because isn't that normally a bit of a no-no?
Well, it was really only, there was a couple of reasons why I did it. One, I was advised to, and at the time it was like, you know, I was a novice, so I was taking advice from one of our coaches about what type of shoe I should train in. And then they were, when I put them on now, I've still got them, and they still go out and still, you know, even though they're 4 years old, they still occasionally go out and do some miles. And whenever I put them on, they feel like diving shoes. You know, it's like somebody's fastened lead weights to my feet. So I can tell you now that, you know, it is a factor, the weight of your shoe. But if anything, in training, it probably made my legs a little bit stronger because I was having to throw that weight, that heavier shoe all the time. So that when you did actually on race day swap to a lighter weight pair of shoes, you felt like you were turbocharged, and it was actually quite a big boost. But I do hear your point about swapping from one shoe and then suddenly swapping to another shoe. But I only did it for the last, I maybe did two long runs in the race shoe to make sure that they were going to be okay for me, and the actual race itself. So it was, I would also be very nervous about just training the whole thing in one pair of shoes and then for the race itself putting on a pair you've never tried before. I think everybody would say that would be a bad idea.
I sort of made that mistake. For Chicago, I don't know why. Did most of my training in Adidas Boost, which got a reasonable amount of support, and decided to do the race in Adios trainers, which were really lightweight. I had done half marathons in them, never done a 20 miler. I'm not kidding. I was in the most agony I've ever been in by about mile 23. I mean, it's always
No,
painful towards the end of a
just
marathon.
a
No, this was a different level of pain. All of my body felt like it was about to fall off or something. So, yeah, I wouldn't advise wearing a different pair of shoes.
And nothing new on race day.
No, definitely not. And I would say as well, when I train, I've got about 3 pairs of trainers on the go that I rotate around, so that none of them are doing too many miles. But yeah, then pick which one I know I'm going to run the marathon in, and just make sure you're doing enough running in them so you know they're going to be okay. But I know Alice last year was desperately looking at buying new Brooks because hers were absolutely knackered because she'd done every run in them, and then she hadn't got enough time really to sort out getting new ones. And even though it's the exact same pair, you know, she's always trained in that type of shoe, you never know what the new shoe's going to be like, and you do need to break them in a bit. So I think it's definitely worth having a couple of pairs of trainers on the go so that you know, you're practicing a bit. And your gait can change as well, because I've done the gait test, and when I've gone back recently to redo it, it's completely changed for me, and that's probably because of things like track and my form getting better. So my running style has now changed. So I think it's worth checking that and keeping an eye on it, and checking again every time before you buy a new pair of trainers.
Have you got any tips for training when it's icy? What do you do? Because
Treadmill.
last winter was brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal. I think tips for
Training when
training.
it's icy. I need to
Yeah.
repeat the
It's
question.
alright.
I think yeah, I mean treadmill, but if you like off-road running, you know, that's a great alternative. You know, getting out on the hills.
It is a problem. I mean, there was we had a particularly cold snap last year for the winter training program, and I do remember the week where it was at its worst. I had 4 treadmill sessions in 1 week, and they're awful.
Yeah. The treadmill.
But it was at the end of my road, and it was that or
It serves its
risk
purpose.
injury or not run. So I chose. So if it's borderline, it's down to your own. If you're going to go out and the pavements are a little bit hit and miss in places, just a bit of common sense, just maybe go a little bit slower, and if you go anywhere, keep your eyes open, run with your eyes as well, just in case there's any ice, and then you can, and just be very careful when you're going around any form of a corner, you know, just, but yeah, it's, wrap up and maybe a little bit warmer.
Yeah, I was training in that cold snap, and that same week, that was the first time I'd been on a treadmill in absolutely years. I hated it, but I did. Some of the days it was just far too cold to get out, but we still wanted to. In fact, I think it was Wimbledon half was due to be on, and that got cancelled because of it. But we still wanted to get a long run in. But we put it back an hour just to allow it to warm up a little bit, so it wasn't as icy, and we dropped our pace right down. I mean, that was an easy pace, very steady run, but we still wanted to get it in, and parts of it we did go off-road, we did a bit of the water path and down the Mersey to begin with, just to allow it even longer to sort of warm up a little bit, but we still went out and got the run in, and that's when you know you're committed to the marathon, when you're dragging yourself out in the freezing cold on those days. But they build you as well, because that was a particularly tough long run. But that really helped us come marathon day, knowing that we'd got out and done, well, that was 22 miles for us that week, so we'd gone out and done it, and gave you the confidence that, well, it can't be as bad as this. Surely no, it wasn't, because it was all warm for the marathons instead, but we'd had that training in.
So you just got to go out and train in all weathers, because you just don't know what's going to happen on race day. You know, it's
going to rain
is
like
important.
It's going to rain at Manchester.
Well,
Never
no,
know,
it's been really warm.
Yeah, it did rain this year.
Can I just ask you a question? Basically what you said there, you're happy because you did a long run. I've done a couple of marathons, and I think one of the big things nobody's mentioned is your mental state. When you're running, you might miss a run and it affects you. So you think, you meant I've not done it, I've got to go and do it the next day, where you suggested you don't have to. But for the newcomers for the first time, can you give them any advice on that, the mental state of the long runs? Because you're up and you're down.
So, can you give any mental advice on running a marathon, training for a marathon?
Well, there's probably two sides to that. If you miss a run, you know, don't stress too much about it. You know, yes, we want to stick to the training plan as much as possible, and then obviously that is the best way to sort of, you know, prep for the big day. But if you do miss out, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. But going back to a point that Chris made before, some of those days where you just don't want to go out for a run, you get back from work or whatever, I don't want to do this, really don't. Making yourself go out and do it, once you've done it, you will feel amazing.
Yeah.
You'll feel knackered, but you'll feel amazing, that's doing it.
You'll never regret doing it.
And like you say, John, from a man sort of point of view, it's just so good for you, it's great.
Have you got any tips on how to do that then? How to make yourself get out and do it? Because that's going to be the hardest part.
Like Chris alluded to before, is having that discipline, and I'm not, people might know, I'm not the best at discipline, and getting the training done, but you just, I think we've all been there where you do, get back from work and you feel like crap and it's like, bloody hell, I'm not eating, I don't want to be going out for a long run now or whatever, but just go and do it.
Can I just share what I do? If I don't want to go out for a run, I'll say to myself, right, put my kit on. If I go out for a run, and if I still don't want to run after 5 minutes, I'll come home.
Yeah.
Because by the time you've been out, you're out then, aren't you? You don't want to come back.
Once you're out, you more than likely, you'll be up for it then.
Once you've started your network and you're messaging your mates and you'll say on a Wednesday who's up for a Sunday run, you've committed and you won't go back down.
Some days will be easy because there'll be groups there to do
it.
But run with somebody else on another night, fine. There'll be other people training, there'll be lots of people training for the marathon. And I think that's the other thing, like, mentally share it, so don't keep it all in, share it with other people, because probably talking to other people about it, people are feeling the same thing. I think the more open you are during the process as well. And those runs where you're running with other people and you're just chatting away, they just go like that, don't they? Brilliant.
I think, obviously, if you're on the training group, most of the time, you only move midweek runs, there'll be other people to do it with, but on the odd occasion, maybe you've missed going with a group or whatever, and you've got to do it on a different day. If there's no one in the training groups to join, just post on main groups. There's always someone who will want to go out and do it.
They might not even be training for a marathon, but they might just want they might want to just put 10 miles in with somebody because they're training for something else.
Even if they just come out for half of it with you or something, and it's just great to have that sort of company and support, to even for part of it.
I mean, one thing I'd say is, I suppose one of the it goes back right to what Sarah said almost at the beginning, like how much do you actually want it? If you really, really want it, for whatever reason, it could be a very personal reason, that's very personal to you, whatever your motivation or reason for doing it, if that's really strong at the beginning, that'll get you a long way. You can't just teleport that in and suddenly develop this desire. You've got to find whichever little bit of you that is the thing that's motivating you. You've got to be able to almost go back to that place when it's getting tough to get you through it sometimes. And I know part of my motivation when I did the first one was I had a bit of a reputation for being a reasonably good runner around club, but probably not very disciplined and probably wouldn't see it through. I'd be probably spend too much time in the pub. And there was a big part of me that wanted to sort of like hit all of those sessions, do all of the runs, and see it through, because I wanted to do well for myself, but I won't lie, there was a little bit of me that wanted to maybe sort of prove a few of the people that maybe thought I wouldn't see it through wrong, and that was quite motivating to me, and I'll tell you this, having got to the race day, knowing that I'd pretty much done all of the sessions, give or take a few, I stood on that start line knowing that I'd already achieved what I wanted to do, regardless of what actually happened on the race day itself. That race, I was looking, I had a grandstand finish and finished 2 seconds under 3 hours, having run the last half mile at sort of ridiculously quickly to do it. And it couldn't have been any better. But I was lucky in that respect. But I'd already achieved a lot of what I wanted to do before the buzzer went at the start, because I knew I could look myself in the mirror and go, I've done everything that could have been reasonably expected of me to make a success of this. And that was one of the things. It still is the thing that I'm most proud of that first marathon was the fact that I you know, so that was something that motivated me. So you've got to try and find what it is that motivates you, that's going to give you that. That's the feeling that I had.
Write it down, pin it up on your wall, have it to look at.
One other trick would be, I always find it easier, I always book a January half marathon, and I always book a 20-mile race about a month before marathon day. That way, you're in December, and you're not looking the middle of April for your marathon, you're looking at January for your half marathon. So in a way, you're not training for your marathon, you're focused on that half. And the marathon training suits that. And both races will give you an opportunity to reevaluate where you are in your training plan. Do I need to drop it, reassess it? Am I faster than I thought? The 20-mile one, not a lot of people buy it. I know the owner, he wants to do a 20-mile run.
Yeah, I do, if
And
one fits.
I always find it a great dress rehearsal. You know, gel strategies, hydration and full kit strategy. And it puts me in a great place, could race down the start line having done a 20-mile, and I'm confident of getting to mile 20 without the hiccups. So it's another way of breaking up the training.
Yeah. I think I always, as Chris said, just remind myself why I'm doing it and focus on my goal. So if I don't feel like going for a run, I'll think about that. And then if that doesn't work, I know that if I don't go out, I'll just spend the rest of the night kicking myself and being annoyed at myself for not having done it. So that's usually now enough to get me out the door.
I think you need to accept as well that you're going to have a wobble. There is going to be a time where it gets to you and you're tired and you're fed up and you think, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it anymore. And allow yourself to have that wobble. That's all part of the process of getting to marathon day. You know, that's the mental side that's building you up, ready to run that race, because you're going to have a wobble on marathon day. Sure, at some point your head will want to give in more than your legs actually do. So, you know, and that's where the group, again, I'd say the group's really important for that, because there will be somebody that will put a post up saying, I'm really struggling, I'm really tired, and then everyone will jump back on and comment and say, me too, and it's just that reassurance then that everyone's feeling the same as you are, and it's completely normal, it's all part of the process.
I feel, as I've mentioned our very own physio Nick, I should mention our very own psychologist Stu. Stu is doing a bit of an offer at the moment in December, so.
It also probably seems like a good time to announce that our next talk is going to be Stu, who will obviously be talking probably more about the mental side of running. I'm not quite sure exactly what the talk is yet, because I think Neve has been organising that one. But yes, that is going to be our next talk. When, Neve?
21st of January.
So there you go. So that will focus on that side of things a bit more, maybe. So yeah, so that will be the next talk.
It is, sorry.
Just a couple of questions for you, really. So we're talking about pace for your long runs, and they're supposed to be easy. So how many of you ran too fast on your long runs, and how easy should your easy actually be?
Okay, so how easy should your long runs be, and how many people ran too fast on those long runs?
Your long runs shouldn't be easy. They won't
Easy
be.
pace.
Yeah.
Well, some are easy pace.
It's usually sort of starts and finishes with a bit of easy pace, with the bulk of it at your anticipated marathon pace. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's not changed, has it?
No, so that's the plan, but not necessarily. I mean, are you following the plans that we've got for the group? Have you looked at another? Because there are a lot of marathon plans.
There's a lot of marathon plans out there, and
I
haven't looked. I've done quite a lot of reading around it,
yeah,
because I'm still undecided because of what happened last time I did it.
Yeah.
So basically, I ended up so injured
yeah.
during it because I picked up an injury. It just scares the shit out of me because I don't want to be in that place
That's
again.
why it's important to build.
And that's the blocker I've got at the moment. I'm not saying I probably will end up signing up because I just will. But it's knowing what's right for one person isn't right for another person, and there's differences in time-based training plans and distance-based training plans, and that long run between 3 hours, and at 3 hours at somebody's pace like you, Chris, you'd be running longer than you ran the marathon. So, and for 3 hours for me is nowhere near 20, well, not nowhere near 20, but it's not going to get me to 20. So psychologically getting to 20, you know, how much of a difference is it between time-based physiological changes and psychological doing a 20 or 21?
That's a really...
Do you want me to repeat that?
Sorry, it was a bit of a
No, I'm just going to summarise that last little bit. That I think this is like how psychology mentally different is it to sort of run that 20-mile run, or to run the time but not get to that distance.
Right. I think it's I think you made a lot of really interesting observations, and one of the things that you said was about, you know, knowing what's right for you.
Yeah.
There's mixed thoughts about how you should approach long runs and how quick. Some people do loads and loads of really slow miles, but they're maybe doing 120 miles a week. You know, you're talking, say, like professional like Kipchoge, who's the world record holder. If we're led to believe that he runs absolutely loads and loads of miles at what for him compared to his race pace is almost walking, but he does loads of them. There's another, you know, other people who haven't got the time to do 120 miles a week will do less but do them quicker, and there's a whole number of different opinions in between. I think mentally it's quite, you know, you make a really good point about the fact that the amount of time you're spending on your feet, it's psychologically as well as physically tough to be out there for that long. You know, for me it's slightly the other way around. I'm on my feet for a lot less time, but so mentally it's maybe a little bit, well, in some ways it's easier for me, but physically, you know, it's really, really hard. So it's a bit of a trade. You know, in some ways I'm maybe lucky because I get it over and done with sooner than somebody else. But my view on it, and I'm sure that, you know, there'll be others, is that if you're running 26 miles, and that's the, you know, 26.2 miles hopefully, because we have had people do 26 miles. It's important that you do 26.2. It's important that you, at whatever pace you feel able to get it done at, for me, that you still, if you still do that run of 20 miles rather than going a little bit quicker and maybe doing a short one, because come the race day, your body is going to have to do 26.2. So for my attitude on it is do it slower, complete the distance, because your body's going to have to complete the distance. And the reason I say you obviously do it slower is so that you don't injure yourself and you give your body the best. But the trade is that you're going to be on your feet for a bit longer, and it's going to take a bit more time. But you've got to listen to your own body on that. If you think what you're doing is starting to injure you or something, you've got to take heed of that and not push yourself to breaking point.
What would you say, Steph?
I would reading into marathon training just to improve on my last marathon. I would definitely do my long runs slower. Not that I did it super fast, I didn't, but understanding that I'll be doing faster paces in the week for speed, but yeah, getting the endurance in. And I know that from doing Race to the Stones of training, the endurance really played a big part to see me through the end of the
And what
race.
about the sort of running time-based distance?
I'm not a fast runner, I never will be, and for me it will be, I've got time in mind, so I will be aiming for that time, and probably towards the end, whether it's right or wrong, towards the end of the training, upping the pace a little bit just to make sure that I can.
Leona, I know this is what you're thinking about with the marathon pace long runs, because obviously your last marathon, I think you did it more easy, didn't you? But you're changing that this time.
Yeah. Well, firstly, what you were saying about, you know, time or distance, I think a lot of plans do say run for 2 hours or whatever. Yeah. I think both ways would probably work, but you've got to have confidence in your own plan. So if you're going to be thinking at the back of your mind, oh, I've not done 20 miles, or I've not done this, and it's going to play a part on the day, then you do 20 miles. Whatever you decide, have faith that that plan's going to work and follow it. I've always done it on mileage, but I know lots of other people have done a long runs based on time and that's worked. So they both work, but I just have confidence in it that it works. In terms of the pace of the long runs, I think for my first few marathons, I was trying to do marathon paced miles in my long runs and still do things like track. But I didn't have sort of a history of running behind me. I got injured in all of my first training plans. So the last 2 or 3 that have been a lot better, I've done my long runs really slow and made sure I've got in, say, a faster club run and track, and that's worked really well for me. I've got like some like PBs and stayed, most importantly, got through the training consistently and not got injured. And I know that there is other runners in the club that have taken that approach as well. This time I'm actually going to try and do some more marathon pace miles in my long runs, because I hope that I've got to the stage where maybe I can cope with that now in my long runs. But I guess it's listening to your body and engaging what's working. If you are starting to get niggles and you're not getting the track sessions and the hard sessions in a week, then maybe do the long runs easier and see if that works for you. But constantly sort of check where you're up to and readjust if you need to.
Yeah, I think that's really important, readjusting, you know, just because the plan says it's got to be that way, if you're not feeling it and you are starting, you can always alter that, and you've got to listen to your body and know when that you know, the difference between you just being a bit lazy and you don't want to go out for the run, or actually your body's exhausted and you need to take that break, and maybe you do need to reduce the miles that week just to give you that recovery, and maybe that means reducing your long run or reducing the pace and not doing the marathon pace miles. You know, you've got to listen to your body.
One thing as well, when I was doing my longer runs at an easier pace, I made sure I raced maybe 2 or 3 half marathons during the training, so that was, you know, a good practice of running a longer distance at sort of a harder pace, and I think that was good mentally to, you know, run for a longer distance and get used to pushing myself. So if you haven't done that, then on race day it might be a bit of a shock.
And there's lots of races about, isn't there?
Yeah.
That tie in with your training plan.
Yeah, just be careful you don't do too many and burn out.
No. But to put yourself under sort of race conditions once or twice during the training is good, especially if you're doing your long runs easier.
Just as an illustration, would any of you mind sharing what your marathon pace would be as opposed to your long run pace, just so as I can get an idea of the difference in paces that you would be looking at running?
That's a good question.
So what's your marathon pace and what's your long run pace?
I was going to say there's an actual calculator that I think Steph's going to get up. So, you know, I must admit it's a system on my phone as well, because it is really useful for looking at what your paces should be. I am terrible at doing the easy pace long runs or any run at easy pace, because I always go too much faster than that, because I find it really, really hard to run at what they say is the easy pace. But I do try and aim for it, and I will set my watch up so it bleeps at me to tell me that I'm pushing the pace too fast. But then I never probably get quite to the easy pace, but I will drop it quite considerably.
Conversation was a yardstick, maybe.
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, my marathon pace is, you know, well, I'd be aiming for 8-minute miles. So when I'm doing the long runs, I would have some, you know, 2 easy miles at the start, 2 easy miles at the end. In between, I would do that marathon pace. But that's just the way I sort of, when I have got the change for marathons. But that's another story.
I've kind of adjusted it as I've got fitter and stronger. I mean, I would go for first marathon. I'd err on the side of caution. I'm lucky that I've just had a really, really good marathon in Chester. But that time that I got in Chester wasn't the result of one good training block. It was the result of it being my 5th marathon. So, you know, the cumulative gain of fitness from you know, it's basically, if you look at it, for me, it's been steady progression. So I've kind of amended it as, I remember the first one we did, easy pace would be 7:45, Steve?
7:45 to 8.
Yeah, and then marathon pace was to do them at 6:50.
Yeah.
So there was quite a big difference.
Speed up a bit.
Yeah, and we were quite disciplined on it as well. We pretty much stuck to that. So there's quite a differential. And then as I've become better at the distance and fitter, this year it was more that we were marathon pace would be sort of around about 6:15, 6:20, and we do the slow miles at 7:10, 7:05 or something. So me and Andy didn't really do many slow miles, but they were just a bit slower, So I think, but that's.
Sure, everybody can relate, yeah.
I'm not trying. That's not saying.
Hey, it's not miles.
Yeah. For me, it's that's just saying it's a good question you've asked. It's amended. It's slid over time as I've got fitter, but. There should be. I would normally say that you're looking a good a minute slower, at least a mile for your easy pace than your marathon pace. And the other thing is I would say is that and again I think that's the first year where we were absolutely blowing out of our proverbial doing sort of like 6 miles at marathon pace, and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to maintain that pace for 26 miles? And it just and it just didn't seem like it would ever happen. But you're doing your long runs at the end of quite a long week of training that's followed a previous long week of training and you are fatigued, and then as you've got to trust the plan all the time. This fatigue is contributing to making it. You feel stressed, you feel tired, but underneath it all, what you don't realise is it's conditioning you and you're becoming fitter. And that continues all the way through the programme. And then at the end of it, you're almost, I suppose, 2 or 3 weeks before the main event. You're probably as most stressed and fatigued and as tired as you're going to get. And then all of a sudden the plan backs off. And then you start to get fresher, and I don't know where it comes from on race day, but and it doesn't always. You can have a bad day at the office, but somehow on race day you find the ability to maintain. You run further and quicker than you ever do in training. It's
the
weird.
fact that the course is full of Chorlton runners, that you dare sweat off.
If you're doing Manchester, you get amazing support.
Amazing.
Just going on to that VDOT calculator, how to use it properly. When you're looking to see what you should be able to do your marathon in, you put your half in and it gives you a marathon time. So what time you should be putting in to get your training times? Is it your half time or your marathon or your predicted marathon time?
Your current half marathon, isn't it? If you put that in, you get your predicted marathon time, and then within that, it then breaks it down.
That marathon time is going to be, I'm just looking at it going.
Yeah, well, I'm exactly the same.
I think VDOT's a bit generous, to be honest. I usually double it and add about 10 minutes, and that's the right sort of time I do find VDOT.
Double your half and add 10 minutes is normally.
I suppose that will vary depending on whether you do it in 5, 6
Brilliant. I think we will post something on VDOT because so Val's going to post something in the group about that, and we'll do some explanations about it.
But I put in what I'm aiming for marathon time to look at it, because if I followed what my half is to what my marathon time is, it's just not going to happen, and I know it's not going to happen. So yeah, I tend to do what I'm aiming for and then use it as a base. But I wouldn't be really looking at it too much now, because this first cycle is all about just building up the miles, and you're not
So forget about
I
the
mean,
speed and the pace.
it's useful. It's useful to look at if you're doing like a track session, because there will be set paces that you're running, so it's useful for those sessions. But really, at the minute, you have no idea what your marathon's going to be. You kind of need to reassess after your first month of training how you're feeling, get an idea then of what your goal's going to be, and have more than one goal, because you know, you might not always go to plan. Your training might not lead you to where you need to be. So I tend to have 3 goals in mind. The third one being just to finish and still to be smiling. So you know, you can have more than one goal that you're aiming for.
I think one of the long runs scheduled for January is actually a half marathon race.
Yeah.
So that's
ideal
evaluating your marathon time.
So would you run out half marathon?
You'd run that for
proper race there for half marathon?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It is a good time to PB as well. You have had that first month of solid good training, and I think there's 4 villages and Inskip there both on the 20th of January, because I think the one mentioned in the plan obviously is related to last year, so I don't know if there's anything that translates, but they're quite good ones to schedule in, see where you're at.
So then before that, Central Lancs.
Oh yeah, Central Lancs is the one that's on there, but Inskip or 4 villages are perfectly timed as well.
Well, we're looking to get booked on some of those, isn't it? Because
it's
probably not too far off.
Why are you scared?
When I finished, so I did Seville before I joined Chorlton, and I picked up a little niggle towards the end of the training, and I ignored it, and it properly bit me on the backside about 6 miles in, and I basically hobbled across that finish line in an awful amount of pain. I was really disappointed.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so important to listen to your body during the training as well, and take time off if you need to take time off. You know, the training you do will do you so much benefit, and taking a week or a couple of weeks out of that mid-cycle won't do you any harm. I think people get scared. It's like, oh, I missed a run, oh no, and then they try and make it up, or they do something silly, and actually taking a couple of weeks off probably do you more better than it would do harm. So, because you'll have that fitness, you'll have that, and there's always other things you can do to complement it as well. We had the balance runner talk the other week, didn't we? So there's lots of different things you can be doing, and I do think if you get in that niggle, get it checked out, don't ignore it.
Well, I do strength training now anyway once a week.
Brilliant.
That's one thing I would encourage. I think I don't really go to the gym, but one thing I did work on quite a lot at was core strength, and I think everybody just seems to assume you just run from your legs, but you're probably one of the key things that I would advise everybody to try and get stronger is your core strength, your abs and your lower abs, because that is basically the building blocks that everything else is fastened to. So if you've got, especially if you're going to be on your feet for a long time, if you've got a strong core, your hips are coming off there, your upper body's fastened to it. If you can keep that stable and it's strong, then you've got a good chance that the rest of you will remain stable and strong. So I think Gavin would say, like he'd often say, you want to be able to, was it plank for
1 minute for every hour?
Yeah, give or take. So
yeah, I can do that.
There's lots of plank camps as well.
Yeah, so that is obviously mind yourself if you've got like a bad back and stuff, and don't your mileage and your don't overdo it to begin with. Slowly build that strength in the same way that you're going to slowly build your miles, but don't neglect the core, because that I think that's the building blocks for you being a good
What about stretching? How important is stretching?
How important is stretching?
Well, apparently very, but I'm the wrong person to ask. I think it's obviously bad at it. I had to go and see Nick at one point.
Different people, but key to maintain where you're starting, because as you use your muscles, you get tighter and tighter throughout the program. It's different, so different for different people. If you've got away with it, you might
It's
be lucky.
different for different people.
Yeah, some people need to spend more time than others.
Depends how flexible you are, but generally it's quite important, especially after those long runs. And a bit of self-care every so often. You might find that you need to get yourself booked in for a bit of sports massage as well, just to help loosen off muscles.
There'll be lots of posts in the group about how people hate foam rolling as well. You know, there's be more and more of that. But yeah, ice baths.
Yeah, I know.
So they're
not as good as they used to be.
Oh, they're not. Sauna.
Sauna.
I mean, there's so many. I mean, I think what we're probably all learning at the moment is, from, if anything, from this, there are so many different things that you could start stressing out and worrying about. You know, what shoes, what to eat, how far I should run, how fast I should run. It's like, you know, and the danger is you could end up tying yourself in knots or becoming neurotic about it, and people do. But I think there's, you know, there are some basic do's and don'ts, like, you know, what are good shoes, ones that don't give you blisters. You know, make sure if you go out, you know, you're not going out for 20 miles and you've not eaten for, you know, a day and a half or something. You know, just to make that. Yes, there's lots of advice out there, and a lot of it differs, but
I think the most important thing is do what works for you as well. Just be true to yourself, listen to your body, and enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come
Don't
on.
be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid
No,
to.
not at all.
You know, don't think that you're just on your own marathon journey. Just make sure that if you have got a concern, no matter how small that you might think or insignificant, there's an absolute wealth of knowledge, and just ask.
Definitely, and that's why we wanted to start this early, really, rather than letting you go 3 months through it and then have a chat. So you know where we are.
How do you avoid hitting the wall? You know, like after 18 miles or 20 miles, it's different, obviously, for everyone. So I experienced like hitting the wall when I was like running my second marathon at 18, or my third marathon is like 20 miles. My legs just give up. So what would you do also if you hit the wall?
What do you do when you hit the wall?
But is that like hitting the wall as in your legs are really tired, or hitting the wall as in you've gone sort of spacey and you can barely stand up anymore? I think this getting tired and losing pace in a marathon, and then I think hitting the wall is actually something different that I actually haven't.
David Wyeth hit the wall. That's hitting the wall. You know. Other people say they've hit a wall, and they may have just become incredibly fatigued. And I think by the time the hitting the wall thing is like Gavin. He said, well, I can't remember which race it was he was doing. It might have been Berlin or somewhere, but he said he was fully aware of what was going on around him, and he was trying to run, and he said it would have actually been quicker at that point if he just walked, you know. But in his head, he was, and it's that by the time you get to that point, it's too late. It's, you know, somebody could put an IV drip in and give you sugar. It's basically just absolutely drained yourself completely out of all energy, and your body's starting to have some sort of reaction to it. And the only way you can pull yourself around from that is basically somebody getting you sugary drinks inside you and waiting.
Hydration, yeah, John's saying hydration is key as well, and I think that's a great thing to practice on your training runs, and I'm awful at it, I really am, especially in the winter, and I think just making sure you're hydrating as much as you're fueling as well.
I find that advice getting a Camelback, even if you don't do it, just so if you do it at the wall or whatever when you're doing a long run, just so you've got something there to drink.
The thing is not to get to that point in the first place. By the time you're already displaying the symptoms of hitting the wall, you've probably already gone past it. It's too late. It's going to happen. So the thing is, during your training, is to make sure that one, you go out, as I said, fueled enough to begin with, and if you do suffer, or you're gonna, you run out of energy on runs, take something with you, and don't wait until you're feeling ill before you start eating. Just,
I think you're right, but I think there's a lot of new runners here for marathons, and it's just that mental thing again. You've got it there in case.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's how I started doing it, and I still do it on my training runs now. Just so you've got that in case you feel like that.
People use different.
It's usually 3 miles per gel, and so you can sort out how many gels you need. That's a rough idea.
Again, that's an individual thing. Some people just don't like gels at all. And
all they could.
But that's what you training is for, to practice that, especially as you're starting to build the miles up, you can work out what works for you. I think if you're talking about a mental wall that you've hit, I've definitely done that on pretty much all of my marathons. The way I get over that though is breaking the run down. So you're not thinking about running 26.2 miles at the beginning. I break it down into 10Ks, so that makes it easier. And water stops actually become a reward. Like, just get to the next water stop. If you need to, you can walk, but just get to the next water stop. And then usually I've had water, and then I can carry on, and it allows me to continue because I've broken it down. Water stations or even your gels. Just use a way of breaking it down because that helps you get over it. Because rather than then saying I need to finish a half marathon still, you're thinking, right, well, I'll just get to this next little stage and then see how I feel, and usually that pushes you on to get over that wobble that you usually have.
Try and equal your splits as well. Don't go off too fast. That's very important.
Yeah, I think so many of us go on too fast in marathons, and it doesn't matter how many times I'm told, and I know I shouldn't do it, I'll still do it every marathon. But I usually slow myself down quite quickly, but that initial point, it's really hard not to get carried away. But if you can try and stick on pace at the beginning, it's going to benefit you later on in the miles.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with tired legs. It's probably, when it's happened to me, it's usually if I've set off too fast, or I've tried for a target that perhaps isn't realistic. If I've paced it right, I've tended to, you get tired, but I tend to be able to keep the pace. Whereas when I've set off the wrong pace and gone out too fast, that's when I get to about 20 to 22 and start to feel like you're waiting for your trigger.
Have all of you used gels, and when would you start trying them out in your training? Gels, are they necessary? When do you use them?
I use them on all marathons, and I'll have about 5 or 6. In training, when I first started for a marathon, I used them on all long runs and to try and get used to them. And I probably, tried having quite a few on long runs just to make sure my stomach could cope with that. Now I know they can, and I don't really like them. I tend to just take as little as possible in training, and I know that I can still use them on the day, but when I first started, I was taking maybe 3 or 4 on training runs just to make sure I could stomach it.
Exactly the same.
And like everything, there's a whole load of different gels as well. So, there's different brands that work for different people. I know lots of people like different types, so try a few. And then there's other things as well.
Like wind, isn't it? Tailwind.
Tailwind. What's tailwind?
That's
shot blocks. Oh, I like the shot blocks. I don't know what tailwind is.
Drink.
Like a carb drink.
Yeah. What sort of length of run would you start?
Whenever you want. Some people, I know quite a few people who've actually tried the gels when they're not running, just to see if they can actually have it. Because some people do just hate it.
Yeah.
So, just try one. See if you can actually stomach it.
Good on your long runs, and we're all, we should all be starting on those long runs now.
Yeah, I tend to not use them if it's under 14 miles. If my long run's going to be over 14 miles, that's when I might take them and introduce them. I'm a bit like Leona, because I know now that I can do it on marathon day. I use less in training than I would, but particularly in my last long run, I'll practice as if it's marathon. That's usually I'll do 20-22 miles, and I will practice my strategy then of my gels, even though I know it works. I still like to get that run in.
People do use it for 10Ks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's literally, if they're going for a time on a 10K, they'll do it. So whatever.
Again, it's one of those, I think everybody will tell you something different, so it's making sure it works for you. Yeah.
Have you got any of those ethics ones left?
You know what, I do actually have a few.
The club got donated some gels and they weren't all that nice. A lot of us didn't like them, but we couldn't give them away. it was the struggle to get rid of them.
Still got loads of life for a living.
We won a competition, we need to win another competition. Right. I think Stu will cover some more of mental race tactics at the next one, and we've got a long way until race day anyway, so now it's about focusing on the training. I think, as the guys have said and stuff, were saying, you know, just ask if you've got any queries. You know who we guys are now. That doesn't make sense. You know who we are now, and there's plenty of people marathon training, so the person next to you as well. And my biggest thing is just enjoy it. You know, you've got to want to do this, so have fun and respect the training. You know, you guys are awesome. I can't do it.
Yeah, if you don't want to post in the group and want to message us, I'm sure all of us would be happy to.
And
you know, it's on. We're all tagged in the Facebook group now, so if you wanted to message one of us direct, I'm sure we'd be happy to answer the question. And same for the coaches.
Yeah, Val couldn't make it tonight, but Val and Gavin who come to track on Friday if you want to speak to us.
As we're wrapping up, Francis, do you want to mention?
It may seem counterintuitive, but I have an early bird Manchester Marathon place I would like to shift.
So if anybody's not entered Manchester Marathon and they want to get a place, then Francis has got
I should say it because I'm now signed up to different.
Who's doing Manchester?
I've just transferred mine to.
Brilliant. You'll love it. The support's amazing. Make sure you've got a Chorlton Runners vest. You don't get a minute without support. Like Lexa said, you can't walk in that marathon because they don't let you.
It's the closest you'll ever feel to like a running superstar. You really do get the most. It's my first marathon, and you get the most incredible amount of support. There's like literally not a mile goes past without somebody shouting for you who's from club. And because our club name is so prominent and easy to read for spectators, and everybody immediately reads it as a local Manchester club, all the local spectators will just shout Chorlton anyway. So you do get an incredible amount of support.
I just say, the last 2 years I've entered Manchester, I've never made it to the start line, which is a massive disappointment. It's been so interesting listening to you tonight. Those 2 years I did go along with support, and unbelievable. And it even made me more jealous and more wanting to do a marathon. I haven't done one yet. I'm not going to enter Manchester straight away, so I won't take you up with early bird just yet. I do plan on doing a marathon training. Okay, I take 3 things from tonight. Number 1, having a goal in mind, some inspiration that'll get me up on those Sunday mornings, get me out that door. Runs quite nicely into goal. Second one, okay? That's buddying up, having like-minded people that will actually bang on my door, like Chris was saying. Get the hell out, get out there, do the run, get it done.
I'll give you the ring Christmas Day.
And the third thing being, because I'm a killer for going out and thinking in my head, going from 5 miles, 6 miles, wow, someone's doing a 15-mile run, let's head out and do it, because that's a brilliant idea. No, it's not. That's why I haven't made it to the start line 2 years in a row.
It's a plan for a reason.
Exactly, I'm not good at following plans. Okay.
So you're not going on that 15-mile run on Sunday then?
My plan was to come down here tonight. When I got home from work, I said, I'm not going to bother Gemma. And she's like, Justin, get there. So the third thing I would say is, I'm after forgetting it now. So,
build it up slowly.
No, listen to your body.
Yes.
Listen to your body. What I done this Sunday, just gone, was I seen on Facebook someone had advertised 15-mile run. I'm saying, wow, cool. I've never done a 15-mile run before. Said I'll do it with you. So went out, done it. I've probably done it a bit too fast paced, and now my Achilles is at me. But I'm going to listen to that a bit and not do that as quickly. I've taken from tonight is build up the mileage slowly in this first phase. Yeah. So really listen to it. The last 2 years as well, something I learned on is I said, right, going home to Ireland for Christmas. I'll start after Christmas. I've started early now and have a bit of a base level fitness, so hopefully to move forward. And just thank you so much for tonight for sitting down in front of us, letting us ask the questions. It's been really inspirational.